Hi, everyone. Welcome back to class. This week, we're talking about ethics. So we've been talking about epistemology for a while, talking about knowledge, belief, justification, theories, etc. Now we're going to move on from that to a new general philosophical topic, which is ethics or morality. We're going to use those words interchangeably. And so this week, we're going to start off on our sort of ethics section of the course by looking at a thought experiment called the trolley problem. We're looking at a couple of thought experiments that all sort of fall under the heading of trolley problems. And then we're going to look at two categories of ethical theory, deontology and consequentialism, which will give different answers to these sorts of ethical thought experiments and to real life ethical questions, which we will talk about in 2 weeks. We'll talk about some real life ethical questions. So in this video, we're going to start off talking about trolley problems, and then in the next two videos, we'll talk about deontology and consequentialism. So, what are trolley problems? Well, trolley problems are a group of ethics thought experiments. If you've seen the sitcom The Good Place, there's an episode they talk about trolley problems. You may have read about it in some articles or seen some videos or heard people talk about it. It's the only thought experiment in philosophy that my grandmother has ever asked me about unprompted. So I think it's pretty well known. If my grandmother's asking me about it, that means it's pretty common, I think. Uh, and the trolley problem thought experiments are designed to put us in a hypothetical situation, as thought experiments often do. But specifically, they put us in hypothetical situations where we would have to make difficult ethical choices. And so in these hypothetical situations, we can ask, A, what we would do in that situation, which is a question sort of about ourselves, who we are, what we are likely to do or choose in different situations. But we can also ask the more important question, which is what we should do. So what you would do is one question, and that can be very interesting. But what we should do, what it's right to do, or maybe whether or not there is even an answer there. Is there a fact about what we should do, or is it just a matter of opinion? We'll talk about that later in the course. But we're going to ask, what should we do? Is there a right answer here? Is one of the options that we're presented with in these hypothetical cases morally wrong? Or is one option morally right and we have an obligation to do it? And we're going to ask these sorts of ethical questions about what's right and wrong, what's morally good or morally bad for us to do, what we should do or what we shouldn't do, and try to get a handle using these experiments, get a handle on some more general principles. Like if this seems so obviously wrong in this one specific hypothetical case, then maybe more generally it's wrong. Or maybe that tells us about what kind of rules we should be following or whether or not we should be following rules. Maybe morality is something different than just following the right rules. We'll talk about that later today, or in this week anyway. And in particular, trolley problems ask a set of related questions about whether or not causing harm is worse than failing to prevent harm. If someone's going to be hurt and you can stop it, but you do nothing, is that better than if you hurt someone? Is it not as bad? How much worse is it? Or how much better is it? How does killing someone, morally speaking, compare to letting someone die and not saving someone that you could save? If you don't save someone that you could save, did you, in some sense, kill them? If your choice resulted in them dying and you making a different choice would have prevented their dying, did you choose for them to die? Did you cause their death in some sense? These are the sorts of questions that trolley problems are meant to raise. And so we're going to look today at three versions or three cases, three trolley problem thought experiments. They're all a little different, but they all follow the same sort of core principle. They all sort of have this common structure, but changing the details may give us different intuitions about what we should or shouldn't do in each case. And that's what we're going to talk about in this video. So case one, the trolley and the lever, or the lever if you're British. So suppose a trolley is running down the tracks out of control. Trolley, think like those train cars they have in San Francisco, or if you have no idea what I'm talking about there, think train. If you see the word trolley, just replace it with train. Same basic principle. It applies the same way. So, trolley or train, whatever you want to picture it as, is running down the tracks out of control. And the brakes are shot. They're broken. They don't work. The train or trolley cannot stop. We can't stop it. The brakes don't work. And the trolley is heading down the tracks towards 5 innocent people who are stuck on the track. Right, it's 5 innocent people. They're stuck on the track. If nothing happens to change the situation, the trolley's going to hit and kill those 5 people. Trolley's big, it's heavy, it's going fast, it's, a couple tons of solid metal. The people who are hit by the trolley are not going to survive. But before the trolley reaches those people, it'll hit a fork in the tracks. Sometimes train tracks or trolley tracks sort of have this fork where, depending on how the track is set up, they can either go straight or they can turn. And so before the trolley reaches those people, it will hit a fork in the track. And the way the track is set up now, the trolley will go straight through the fork and hit those 5 people. But you are standing next to a lever, which will switch the tracks so that the trolley will turn down the other track and away from those 5 people. But on the other track, there is one innocent person. There's one innocent person stuck to the track. And so I did my best using the touchscreen on my phone to draw a visual aid. And look, I teach philosophy, not art. So, but this is what I got. So there's the trolley, which is on the left here on your screen and looks like a trolley. Let's just pretend that that's what trolleys look like. And then right now it's going straight down the tracks and it's going to hit 5 people down on the bottom right there. And you, in the middle, are standing next to a lever. And if you pull that lever, then the trolley will turn left and it will hit that one person. So if you do nothing, the trolley will go straight, it will hit and kill 5 people, but that one person will be safe. If you do nothing, the one person is safe and those 5 people are killed by the trolley. If you pull the lever, the trolley will turn away from those 5 people. So the 5 people will be safe, but the one person will be hit and killed by the trolley. So, if you do nothing, 5 innocent people will die. None of the 6 people on the tracks deserve to be there. None of them did anything wrong. They just, unlucky, happened to be there, and they can't get away. They do not have time to escape. So if you do nothing, 5 innocent people die. If you pull the lever, those 5 innocent people will live. You will save those 5 people. But the one innocent person, who's on the other track, who would have been safe if you did nothing, will die. You pulling the lever will save the 5 people, but cause the one innocent person's death. So, should you pull the lever? That's the question here. That's the question this thought experiment's supposed to get us to ask. Should you pull the lever? And so there's a question about what you personally would do in that situation. But there's a separate question we want to ask, which is, what should you do? Should someone in this situation pull the lever or should they not? If you think that they should pull the lever, then you think they have a moral obligation to pull the lever, saving 5 lives at the cost of 1 life. If you think they should do nothing, then you think they have an obligation not to cause one person's death in order to save 5 lives. So pulling the lever, you're causing one death. And doing nothing, you're not causing any deaths. You personally aren't causing any deaths, or so it seems. Maybe you think that choosing not to pull the lever is causing, in some sense, the 5 people to die, because if you chose to pull the lever, they would live. So you doing nothing, maybe, arguably, might cause those 5 people to die. But I don't want to get into like the metaphysics of causation, which is its own philosophical issue, which we will not talk about because it is too complicated and difficult, and I don't like thinking about it. But the ethical question here that we want to think about is, regardless of what's technically causing what, or how we think about the relation between your actions and these effects in the world, so what do you have an obligation to do here? What are you morally forbidden from doing here? If you have to pull the lever, morally speaking, then you have an obligation to redirect the trolley so that it kills 1 person instead of killing 5 people. If you morally have to do nothing, then you have a moral obligation not to get involved. And you have a moral obligation to let 5 people die rather than causing 1 person to die in order to save the 5. All right, so this is one trolley problem. This is the original trolley problem. And it comes from the 1960s. Philippa Foot, who she was a British philosopher, she came up with it originally. And then Judith Jarvis Thomson, who was a philosopher, she was at MIT, I believe, then sort of ran with it and came up with all these additional cases, some of which we'll talk about now in this video. So this is an interesting question. So whatever your answer is here, think about it. Pause the video if you want to give yourself some time. Think about it, come up with your answer, and then let's move on to case 2 and see how your answers compare between the 2 cases. So case 2 is the trolley and the bridge. So suppose, again, that a trolley is running down the tracks out of control. And again, the brakes are shot, the trolley can't stop. And again, the trolley is heading towards 5 innocent people who are stuck on the track. So far, it's all exactly the same as case 1. And if you do nothing, the trolley will hit and kill those 5 people, just like before. But now, before the trolley reaches those people, it won't cross a fork in the road or in the track, but it will pass under a bridge. So there's a track and there's a bridge over that track so people can walk without getting hit. Now you are standing on the bridge next to an enormous person, just really big, just a real big person. So this version is sometimes called the fat man case, which seems weird because I don't see how just being fat could make you heavy enough for this scenario to work out. You've got to be just big, huge, really tall, big in every dimension. Just being fat doesn't seem like enough, because according to this thought experiment, if you push the enormous person off the bridge, then the trolley will kill them. They'll be hit by the trolley. But they are so big that when the trolley hits them, it will stop. They are so heavy that they will stop the trolley when it hits them. So they'll die, but the trolley will stop before it hits the 5 people. So the 5 people will live. So you can save the 5 people by pushing this enormous person to their death. And so again, I've drawn you a visual aid, which is not well drawn. I am fully aware of that. I have no, misty-eyed view about my own artistic skills. This is about as good as I could draw when I was in preschool, and I haven't really improved since then. But so again, we have a trolley. We're going to pretend that that's a trolley, even though it looks like a stick of butter with stickers on it. And the trolley is passing under a bridge, which now that I'm looking at it is slightly too short for the trolley to pass under. But that's an issue with the drawing, not with the thought experiment. So ignore that part. Not to the drawing is not to scale. Let's put it that way. So there's you on the bridge. You're the one on the left, and the enormous person is there next to you. They're on the right on the bridge. And if you push the enormous person to their death off of the bridge, the trolley will hit them. They will die, but the 5 people, which are off farther down the track, will survive. So you can save those 5 people by pushing this one person to their death. So if you do nothing, then 5 innocent people on the tracks will die. If you push the big person to their death, those 5 innocent people will live. You will save those 5 people. But the big person, who is just as innocent as the people on the track, will die. So if you do nothing, 5 innocent people die. If you push this person to their death, the 5 innocent people will live. So if you do nothing, the one person on the bridge lives, the 5 people on the track die. If you push the person, the one person on the bridge dies, but the 5 people on the track survive. So, should you push this person? Should you push this enormous person off the bridge to their death in order to save 5 lives? Because this looks an awful lot like the original trolley case, the lever case. In both cases, you can cause one person to be hit by the trolley in order to save 5 people from being hit by the trolley. So if you do something, pull the lever or push someone, only one person dies. Whereas if you do nothing, 5 people die. So more people die if you do nothing. And if deaths are bad, you might think that you should try to minimize deaths. And so you should maybe try to make sure as many people survive as possible, which means pulling the lever in case 1. But it also means pushing the person in case 2. And that maybe you were okay with pulling the lever, but now the idea of pushing someone to their death feels wrong. Maybe that feels worse than the lever did. But why is that? In both cases, you're putting someone in the path of the trolley. It's not clear that there should be a real moral difference here between the 2 cases. And yet many people think there is. There feels like there is. That one case is worse. Pushing someone is worse than pulling the lever. But in both cases, you're putting them in harm's way of the trolley. So it's not clear what makes that difference. If anything makes that difference. Maybe you think there's no difference. Maybe you think you should push the person and pull the lever in both cases. And maybe you think you should not push the person or pull the lever in either case. Both of those are reasonable views that have been defended by people who think about these things professionally. So that's case 2. That's the bridge case. I want you to think about that. Think about case 1. Think about what your answers are in both cases. And now we're going to move on to the third and final case I want us to talk about, which I'm calling the hospital and the organs, or the organ case. So now, this is still viewed as a trolley problem, usually, but now it's a little more abstract. We've removed the trolley completely. This is a trolley problem without a trolley now. So suppose you're in a hospital. And there are 5 sick people in the hospital. They each need an organ transplant. They need a new organ. They've got one of them has liver failure, one of them has heart failure, one of them has kidney failure, one of them has lung failure. They each have a different organ that is failing them. And if they don't get a new organ, specifically a new version of whichever organ is failing them, then they will die. They each need an organ transplant or else they will die. And each one of them needs a different organ. If they get the transplant, if any of them gets a transplant, then they will be perfectly healthy from here on out. They will go on to live long and happy lives. Their current medical condition will have no impact on their health in the future. Once they get a transplant, they're healthy from here on out. So if they get a transplant, they go on to live full, happy lives. But, problem, there are no transplants available. No one's a match. The hospital can't find matches for any of them. And there are no organs that we can give them. So if you do nothing, if nothing changes, then these 5 innocent people will die. But one day, a healthy person walks into the hospital, not because they're sick, they're just looking for directions. They got lost, went to a hospital because that was the first building they saw. They're trying to get directions to go where they're trying to go. But they happen to be a perfect match for all 5 patients. So the 5 sick people in the hospital who need an organ transplant, this healthy person who walked in one day is a match for all 5 of them. This person's kidneys could go to the patient who needs kidneys. The person's heart could go to the patient who needs a heart. The person's liver could go to the patient who needs a liver, and so on. So there are 5 terminal patients who will die without an organ transplant. And this one healthy person is the only person whose organs could be used to save the 5 people. So if you kill this one healthy person and harvest their organs, the 5 patients will all live long and healthy lives. And so once again, visual aid that I have drawn to the best of my abilities using my finger and a smartphone. There's the healthy person. You can tell they're healthy because they're smiling. And they're looking up at the cross, the little medical cross symbol that goes on hospitals, the little medical plus sign. They're walking into the hospital, and then there are 5 people lying on hospital beds, sick with organ failure. So, if you kill the healthy, smiling person walking into the hospital, these 5 people lying on the beds will live and survive and have healthy lives. If you kill this person and harvest their organs, the 5 patients go on to live long, healthy lives. But if you do nothing, then the healthy person goes on about their business, lives a long, healthy life, and the 5 people all die. They all die of organ failure soon. Let's say like tomorrow. They don't have long. It's now or never. They can't just keep waiting. It's now or never. If you don't harvest this healthy person's organs now, these 5 people die as soon as possible. So, if you do nothing, 5 innocent people die, just like the first 2 cases. If you do nothing, 5 innocent people die. But if you kill the one healthy person and harvest their organs, then those 5 patients will all survive and go on to live long, healthy lives. So you can kill this one person to save 5 lives. And let's assume that you personally in this scenario aren't a doctor, so you haven't taken a Hippocratic oath, and no one finds out, so it doesn't have like negative consequences for the hospital later or undermine public trust in the medical community. You kill him in secret, you never face consequences, no one finds out, this person just disappears, and these 5 people go on to live healthy lives, no questions asked. Right? Now, should you kill the one to save 5? In this case, should you kill the one person to save the 5 patients? You might think yes. Most people think no, I think, is my sense of where most people stand. I think a majority of people, based on some statistics I've seen in my experience teaching this stuff, uh, uh, not a huge majority, but a majority of people think you should pull the lever in the trolley case. And a pretty huge majority think that you should not kill the one person to harvest their organs. But both cases look like an example of killing one to save five. They both look like you got to kill one person to save five people, or you got to let five people die to avoid killing one person so that you don't kill one person or cause one person to die. And so this is sort of an open philosophical question. What should you do in each of these cases? Should you always do nothing and let the five people die? Should you always intervene and kill one person to save five people? Or should you act in some cases but not in others? Should you pull the lever but not harvest the organs? If so, what makes the difference? Why should you pull the lever in one case but not harvest the organ in the other case? In both cases, it looks like you're killing one person to save five lives. So if there's a moral difference, it needs to be explained what that moral difference is. And you'll have an opportunity to do that in the weekly assignment. But you'll have a chance to think about this and talk about it. If you have any questions about this, please let me know. I'll be happy to talk about it. I think this stuff is really interesting. But this is all I really wanted to talk about in this video. The question is, should you do nothing and let five people die, or should you kill one person to save five lives? That's the question in all three cases. And which cases you say you should do nothing, and which cases you say you should kill the one to save five, will change what philosophical, ethical views are available to you, what you can or can't accept as a moral view. And in particular, we're going to talk about deontology and consequentialism, which are two moral views which give different answers to these trolley problem cases. And we'll talk about those in the next two videos. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.